Welcome back to Game On. Now, let's talk about the women's game. And the women's game in South Africa has moved in leaps and bounds over the last, 10 or so years, and especially over the last few years with, South African club, currently African champions, South Africa on the international stage, sitting as African champions themselves. And that is, no thanks to the Hollywood Bet Super League, of course. And I have got the absolute pleasure of introducing a representative from the Hollywood Bet team. And that, of course, is a former player herself in Indira Albuquerque. Indira, thank you so much for your time. And I have to start off by congratulating you on yet another successful season in the women's game.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's always exciting to be involved with women's football. And, I'm not saying that just because I'm a former player, but there's just so much that we can do in that space, and how commercially viable it is becoming. So, yeah. It
certainly is becoming commercially viable. How has the journey been as the title sponsor of women's football in South Africa?
It's been an exciting journey, learning every year. I think, the great thing is that there's progression every year. At the end of every season, we always have to reflect back and see what we can do differently. And especially being in a corporate position and not actually being physically in the game. There's so much that you learn and ways in which we can, continue elevating the game. So I think after the season, once again, we're really proud of the teams, and we're proud of, us as a sponsor to be involved in the women's game.
Tell us about your goals 3 years ago coming into the women's game, and how much of that you've achieved.
Well, if we just look at the teams, the progression of the teams and the style of play and the quality of the players, I think the environment has really been conducive to, really showing the great talent in some of the players. Players have been called up to national squad. And then, as a brand, obviously, exposure 100% is number one for the company. But just being able to invest in women's football is one of the greatest things, I think, as a company we strive to do.
Certainly doesn't hurt that a team from the Hollywood Bears currently sits as African champions as well, I'm sure, no? Small things,
Yeah, small things. But yeah, credit goes to M.Sundowns. They did it yet again. They were the winners in the inaugural CAF Champions League, and I think they've been doing really great with, the support that they get from the support base, the management staff, and the players, definitely.
And they return, of course, from the heroics on the continental stage to the Hollywood Best Super League, needing just 3 points. And it's done and dusted, and they're champions once again. But the important thing is it's been way more competitive this year.
100%. If we look at, before the league was established, Sundowns were a team that never lost a game. It was unheard of. And seeing the progression of the games, there are teams now that are really stepping up to the plate. We know UWC is one of them. They beat Sundowns, not this season, I think the previous season. But this season, we saw Royal AM come to the party. And, at the end of the day, it's an achievement. You are beating African champions, a team that is really well oiled. The core of the team has stayed pretty much the same for a good number of years. They do, get one or two, new players to spice up the team. But if you really look at Sundowns, it's a core team that has been, with the team for years. And I think experience counts a lot when you look at the women's game. So it's been a very exciting season. And next season, I'm sure things might change, but...
Well, let's talk about changes. And changes were made this season, moving from 14 to 16 teams and introducing, of course, promotion and relegation. Let's talk about those innovations and how they're helping to develop and keep the women's game evolving.
So when the league was first established, the establishment consisted of all the winners of each province and then the teams who have male counterparts. That was the start of it. I think the plan was to get to the 16-team mark. And before we reached there was not going to be no promotion relegation. The promotion relegation then started, and you started seeing a lot more competitiveness coming from the teams. And I think one thing I should highlight actually is the teams that then come into the season for that first season are never the teams that are relegated, which actually shows you that the teams that are coming in are providing that competitiveness to the top 8, and you start seeing how players start moving and teams start changing. A prime example is, TUT was a really top team, always in the top 5. And this season, with the changes of the players and the staff and everything, they did battle a little bit through the season. But, that brings the excitement to the league. So, yeah, I think the changes are necessary, and good luck to the next teams coming in.
Now, in talking about excitement and just closing off this interview, I have to ask you, you aren't only looking at South Africa in this case as Hollywood bets and improving the South African game from a women's perspective, but Southern Africa and the COSAFA region at large as well.
Look, I've alluded to in the beginning, our involvement in women's football stretches further than South Africa, as you've mentioned. I think it's important that we continue investing. It is a very underfunded entity, women's football being that. And I think, our involvement of COSAFA is just to because as a brand as well, we are involved in different African countries, and I think it's important for us to solidify a footprint, but as well as assist in elevating the Southern African teams and competitions that we are able to be involved with. So again, also, it was our 3rd year being involved with COSAFA. And I mean, every time you watch COSAFA, the teams that come, the quality, it just keeps elevating every year. And especially something that we need to take into consideration is a lot of African countries don't have a lot of the resources that we find, in the European stages and all of that. So it's very commendable to see the teams really growing every year.
It is commendable indeed. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you at home as well for your time here as we go into the festive season, knowing that there's plenty of football to look forward to from a South African, English and even Bundesliga point of view. And let's not forget the Hollywood Bets Super League as well. So from myself, Susan Mapena, and the rest of the team behind the scenes here at Game On, it's cheerio until next week.